but the fact is they've been, timing-wise, really wanted to get their story out there, but what's super important to them is doing it the right way. And I'm trying to figure out through these conversations, what is the right way? Like, what's he getting at?
Any man lack wisdom, let him ask, and upbraideth not, and the truth will be given. Faith is like a muscle. You have to build it, man. You have to build upon it. You know, they chose who they wanted to interact with.
Let us know that you're here any way you want to.
Man, I'm shaking, dude.
And I guess I'm blessed, you know, to be able to have had that experience.
Here's what I know. Now what's freaking me out is I saw a lot of lights. I didn't just see the two pairs. There was so many lights that I was like, it just has to be houses, because that's too many lights.
I thought maybe you were shuffling here and Terry was there, and then I took my hood off. Literally, someone was walking right down in there.
Really intelligent beings. They knew who maybe had the truth.
It's compassion for our people is what it is that keeps us going.
Okay. I really started to feel something, and I thought, this is where it's at. My name is James Brost. I have a business here in Sarasota, Florida. It's headhunting, right? I find people for companies. Growing up, I was always into like In Search Of and those shows like that from Jump Street. Through a series of events, met some of these people maybe you saw in the film and that were in the film business. I'm not in the film business. I never was. But I had a knack of finding people.
My name is Barry Webster. I'm an enrolled member of the Omaha Tribe of Nebraska, proud member. I'm a co-founder of a Native American Bigfoot research team, Sasquatching research. I have a team of experts that just do some outstanding work. So really proud of that. So glad to be here, honored.
My name is James Brost. I have a business here in Sarasota, Florida, and it's headhunting, right? I find people for companies. Growing up, I was always into like In Search Of and those shows like that from Jump Street, and ended up when COVID hit, had some time on my hands, and through a series of events, met some of these people maybe you saw in the film and that were in the film business. I'm not in the film business. I never was. But I had a knack of finding people and had a knack of building relationships with people. So that's what I did in a few cases, and Barry Webster was one of them. You know, I'd gotten with him and started researching him and connecting with Barry, having conversations over the span of like 8 to 10 months, and was really intrigued by what he had going on in the reservation there. And fast forward, we ended up getting invited out a couple times, and he chose us to actually document their story out there. And a number of people have been out there, but nobody really had done an investigation and filmed and, you know, did a story on it. And so we created a bond and made this film.
Yeah, how did you feel about having them come onto the res there to investigate with you, to look at things there?
Well, I first of all, you know, it might sound like a simple question, but that is a really good question, in my opinion, because I was truly honored. Talk is cheap, you know. You can say anything, you know, but when they came out, I was first of all, I was excited, you know. I kind of expected, you know, the Citongas to treat them just the way, you know, they did. And again, I was excited. I was really looking forward to, you know, getting them out there. And I know they were more paranormal than anything. So it was interesting to see, you know, some of that. So I enjoyed myself. I really enjoyed myself. They were very professional, very at least they put the dog and pony show on, you know, and it was pretty good, you know. So I was happy.
As we were talking, he told me, you know, this is probably 2021, that he was kicking around the idea. He wanted the story told, but I could tell there's a frustration with Barry about how the story's told. And he said, I can't do that unless you come up here and you spend time here and I get to know you and my brother gets to know you and my team gets to know you. And we approve of who you are and what you're about, and also approve of your vision needs to match our vision as far as telling the story. And there's more to it than just we saw Bigfoot, you know? So it kind of took on a life of its own. And I was intrigued enough to arrange, you know, our crew to go up there and just start, right? Let's do this. Let's meet Barry and his team and you know, let them drive the bus. You know, what I did find is you're not going to go up there with a call sheet and scenes lined out and investigations timed out and interviews set up. You're going to have to just roll with it, right? And for film crew, you know, people pull their hair out in those conditions, and we just rolled with it, you know. And I think that was one of the things that allowed us to come back the second time and make the film that you saw. Was we kind of did a rite of passage, right? A lot of people came up there, everyone from Jeff Meldrum to Igor from Russia, to a host of other people. And it didn't go really well for them as far as being endeared and welcome back. I'll just leave it at that. A lot of them would come and they'd want to stay in a hotel. We stayed in these little hunting cabins with no heat, and it was like 19 degrees, right? And we're out there till 4 a.m, and any place they wanted to take us, they appreciated that. They're like, you guys are just jumping in and going for it. So part of that, you know, to see if we had the right stuff, I guess. So it was my idea, because actually it was met with some resistance too from some of the people that I was going to have to rely on to do some of the filming and whatnot. It was met with some resistance the first time around. And the second time around, we had to scale it back. They didn't want a whole crew of, you know, 8, 9 people. And really the conflict there was Citonga or Bigfoot, Sasquatch, you know, what they're encountering, what they're experiencing for 15 years up there. They said it never works if you have a bunch of lights and a bunch of people and it's like some traveling circus rolls up. You're going to have to do it our way. And so I said, what is your way? And it was, you know, a couple, 3 people at a time. You can bring a camera, but you might not use it the whole time. And we're going to do it with our approach. And his approach is a spiritual one. It's based off of a prayerful connection with these people. You know, these are ancient people, and not just some undiscovered ape. And you know, my experiences lend me to believe that that's true, if you believe it at all, right? But so long story short, it was my idea. It was met with some resistance, and finally I had to scale it down to people that were on board that were willing and able to do this, and that's what we did.
Yeah, they did. I've been talking to James about that a little bit, just about how things went and what they did there, and how when you're joining them there and stuff like that. So, did things go as you expected it to? Then, were you happy with things how it went?
Yeah, you know, with a bunch of cameras around, you know, I didn't think, you know, Citonga was going to walk up to us, you know. But maybe they did, right, James?
Listen, brother, I was, without tipping my hand, I told Trevor, I didn't expect the first night, you know, what happened, and it's there in you know, as they say in black and white, it's there in living color. And I'm a firm believer that the reason it happened was two things. And these are things that Barry instructed me about, was they're going to know, Citonga is going to know your heart, and they're going to already know what you're about when you get out there. And I'd been out there before. And so in my mind, I thought, I wonder what they think I'm about. Right. And so that first night out there, when we came back that second time to film this documentary, three things happened in the span of, 30 minutes that left no doubt. We had praying and footsteps walking in the grass in front of us, maybe 10 feet. And we were there for 20 minutes before that. Someone smoking a cigarette, we're talking trash, we're being loud. If it's a deer, anything would have ran. But you could see clearly when you put the light there, you could see the tall grass. It wasn't like there was no obstructions. The timber was bare. It was wintertime. Barry's praying, man, and we hear footsteps. And I don't want to interrupt Barry's praying because I thought he might get pissed, right? And like breaking his flow. So I don't say anything. But Barry stops, and I know he heard something, and there's footsteps, like a man walking, large man right there. Barry starts praying again. These footsteps start again. And then I whisper, I'm like, did you hear that? And Barry's like, yeah, man, it's footsteps. It's them. And then we hear another step walk up a third time. And that's when Barry starts asking, hey, are you a spirit? Are you Citonga? And then he tells me, well, you say something, dude. So you came out or talked to him. And so I did. And literally when I asked them that they can touch me or contact me, and I say, anywhere you can, just please. The second I do that, man, I start vibrating. And you can see in the film, I've got like oily, it's 19 degrees and my head's oily, man. I'm trying to stand up and not shake apart, man. And Barry, again, converses and said, hey, I don't like when you do this, man. These are our friends. It's just a light. That's Joey, the cameraman. And then finally he says, Barry says, I got something we can do. I'm going to make a noise and you make a noise. Barry stomps, says, there, now it's your turn. The second he says the word your turn, we hear two audible grunts from the opposite side. We're here, footsteps were here. We hear it right here. And Trevor, it's literally 10 feet away. And it's these two grunts. And we don't have a lot of, we wanted to strip it down. So we just had the mic on the camera, which was the furthest away from it. So you don't have like audio boom mics or little lavs and whatever, but it picks it up. And we replayed a few times, but when you're there, it was much clearer and louder. And Joey, the cameraman, who's like, he doesn't say two words. He's like, what was that? And Barry kind of grins, as you can see, and he knows it's them, and he kind of explained to me like, look, I think they know what you're here for. And like he explained, we'll show you something. We won't reveal, the whole thing, but we'll let you know we're here. You asked for it. All right, check this out. And, they kind of I got what they call zapped or whatever. I mean, I can't explain those three things, Trevor, and those all happened within a half hour. Barry's like, yeah, welcome to my world. And it wasn't anything big. It just, the brothers, Barry and Derek, like they get a read, they kind of, their tradition is, I need to see you and I need to see your spirit and I need to see what you're about. And it's not for everybody. Right? Like it's not Eli from Small Town. He said, that was the hardest, film shoot I've ever done. And he's done a lot, So it's not for the faint of heart. And it was more in that vein where going back up, it would be, are you ready to do that again? And some people, the answer was, I don't know, plus I had to scale it back for their purposes. They said, really, we only want, you can bring like 4 people total. And that's what we did.
Well, that's exactly what it is, right? You had to kind of believe and trust in that energy that's out there, and you'll have the experience. I think Barry knows that and kind of believes in that. So Barry's been on before, but can you kind of briefly describe what your background is, Bryce, or what you believe in and how you work with Citonga?
My background, You know, I'm going to make no bones about this, you know. In today's society, I see I see challenges, and I can't help but sit here and think about my community, you know, and I'm sure, you know, James could talk about, you know, Florida and hey man, I got deaths, you know, and but I say that because, you know, I I come from my homelands. You know, people will say reservations. I don't say that. That's my homelands. You know, I come from a very humble people who held Citonga in with high regard, and and we grew up with that. And see, when I say that in the past, I always treated that like yeah. You know, everybody's got that story. But think about that for a second, Trevor. My people hold them in high esteem. And, you know, as I listen to people, not everybody has that, you know, as a tradition or a value. And that's what really separates it, Trevor. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that. You know, I think the more I talk on these podcasts, the more in depth I go. So you're probably catching me on a good night, Trevor. Oh yeah. Well, I think a lot of times, and I didn't hear it. Now, Trevor, I'm gonna go there, and it's probably, you know, if it disrupts the market, so to speak, so be it. But when we came on 15 years ago, there was not a lot of people talking about, you know, they know your heart, you know, they know your motives. There was not a lot of people, Trevor, and I will lay claim to that Barry Webster and Res Squatching really emphasized that for the rest of the world, or this so-called Bigfoot area. And so that doesn't, I'm not saying that makes me, you know, the greatest, or but there was not a lot of people talking about that. And that teaching come from the Omaha, my people. And I'm sure other tribes, you know, had that, and I'm sure somebody's going to write a comment about that even. But nevertheless, when we came aboard and we disrupted the Bigfoot world, you know, with the spiritual approach, you know, again, there was not a lot of people doing it, and not a lot of people even saying, you know, why didn't anybody ask God? You know, so again, Trevor, you're catching me on a good night. Maybe it was me and my grandson ate a good snack, you know. Blood sugar ain't so crazy right now. But anyway, that's I really believe and as James attested to that story, you know, it's really about, you know, the spiritual aspect of it. You know, it's too bad, you know, Brother James can't just come up by himself and us guys hang out with no lights. And, you know, about a month and a half ago, we had a little outing. And James, you would have thought there was lions outside of our tent, the huffing. And I literally woke up and thought, what the heck is going on out there? And it had me startled from 4:30 to about a little after 5. You know, they were really checking us. And I'm not trying to get off the subject, but it's real. You know, it's 11 years ago, if you would have asked me, Barry, do you really think you have a relationship? I probably would have said, maybe. I think so. But today, it's over, Trevor. I don't care who's listening to me, who don't, you know, in this jealous world, you know. Am I right, James?
Absolutely right. I mean, the biggest thing that I discovered up there was, and I mean no disrespect to any of Barry's other group members, but they're connected with Barry first. You know, to me, it came across as he's a representative of the Omaha people, and they've got representatives from the Citonga people. And it's not like anybody, any Joe Schmo can roll up there and be, well, I'm a rep from, white boy land, Florida. I can be a guest. That's the best I can be, is a guest. But Barry's the ambassador. He's the ambassador for his people to them. And I mean, I saw it firsthand. And even the first time we went up there, I was telling Trevor before you came on, when Barry and I, with a bunch of drama going on behind us with our teams, Barry took me out a little ways, and we finally got a chance just to have him say, look, forget all that BS behind us. We're going to pray to get quiet. And in that moment, within a few minutes, my whole body, it was similar to that night where I got the, when I asked them to reach out and touch me, the whole it's just like static was starting to rise up in me. I'm like, something's about to go down, like right now. And then somebody yelled, and the drama continued behind us and kind of broke it. But in that moment, I knew that, okay, this is this approach. This is what he's talking about. This isn't about knocking on trees, yelling in the woods, putting up trail cams, putting up audio recorders. This is about getting in the zone. Prayerful connection is and quiet is the way. But also that it's almost like Barry's got a calling card. They know Barry. They know when he's coming. They know who's with him, and they know your heart before you even get there. So, does that sound accurate to you, Barry? That's my side of it. That's what I saw.
Bro, 15 years into it now, and I try to be. I'm flattered by that commentary, bro. But today, come on, man, it's 15 years. I got to tell it like it is now. I ain't trying to brag. That's what it is, man. And
it really was, Trevor. And I'll tell you why. The first time up, they took us to a spot that some of the spots they go to, they don't want out there for public consumption, or with the tribe to know that you guys are poking around there. It might not be received well. So they had code names for places. And they took us to the one place called the Belly of the Beast one night, apropos, right? And it had some real historical atrocities that were committed there. And in this spot, they talk about, like a lot of spots up there, there's a parallel and a connection between Citonga, Sasquatch, and what you would call paranormal, spirits. And they're interwoven. And this was one of those spots. And we got out there, and there was conflict between some people in our group and someone in his group. And it was kind of a little nuts, right? There was a lot of tension. It was just palpable, and even people arguing. And Barry and I we stepped out. He's like, this, come out with me. And we stepped out away from everybody into this one spot. And it got quiet, and there was no one else around but he and I. And he started to pray. And you got into the zone with him. And man, my whole body, you could just feel it building up, tingling. And I knew something's about to happen here. And then right at that moment, 20 yards away, someone started yelling, and someone was upset about something. And therefore Barry got upset because they broke that kind of, moment that we were in and about to experience. So in my mind, I just knew, like, I could feel it, like there really is something here. And I could see the value in scaling it down and just following I wanted to experience that. I personally had no agenda other than I want to see your way. I want to do it your way. I respect your way. Let's just do it your way.
Spirituality is very important to me. Even if we're playing a game of horseshoes, just to show you, how human I am. Even though I say that, just because I say that doesn't I'm not saying that to say I'm somebody special. I know this though, that I'm a child of God, you know, and I'm not trying to go preachy on you either. I know this, that I see a broken society. And so, you know, when I see my own people, you know, struggling, when I come from my uncle's death or a cousin death yesterday to attend his funeral, and that really brings me down to earth, and to really know that this is God's plan, you know, and I'm leading up to it, Trevor. You know, I believe that without a doubt, you know, that this is biblical, and that there's no other way to explain it. You know, I've heard everybody, you know, and me and my brother get caught up in this. Well, we could shut this down, you know, we could prove to the world, but today, you know, I know without a shadow of a doubt that is a person who is cursed, and I'm gonna go there. Being face to face with them, and being inspired through the Holy Spirit. You know, so, and then I'll go that far. Okay. I know that they're under God's plan. You know, they're not from some outer world, you know, like some people think. And so, you know, again, I don't want to offend anybody, but, you know, I also am getting too old for that now. You know, I'm going to tell you like it is, because unless you squatch with me, you know, I'd be pretty quiet, you know, and try to learn. Am I right, James?
100%. 100%.
And I don't mean that, no disrespect to anybody, man. And if it sounds like I'm the authority, well, you know, be my guest, man. Come on down. You know, let's figure it out.
You know, and Barry said something. He said something in the film too, and like, now, until you go into his world, you can say all you want, and you can compare it all you want, but I will tell you this, and again, I'm not worried about offending people too. I'm in my 50s. I could give two shits, and I've been through, you know, 2 lifetimes worth of tragedies. Scripture's loaded with everything in Scripture is trial, then glory, trial, then glory, trial, then glory. Like Barry, I had 2 brothers die the past 2 years. The most recent one, both of them unexpected. It wasn't like they were cancer or anything like that. They shouldn't have died, and they did. But it's all part of God's plan. And I think the thing that Barry and I connect on as well is, I'm a believer, he's a believer, right? And you can't take, here's what I will say. And I don't, you know, a lot of people in this paranormal world that watch are of the opinion that, you know, the dark side, and they really like to check it out. They really believe they're making contact. You can't have the dark side without the light side. It all came from, if you go through Scripture, it reads like a paranormal novel in many ways. That's where our ideas about this got based in. They got based in the fact that there is a devil, the fact that there are demons. But you can't have those and then cut out, you know, the notion that Christ did. Well, now you say Christ, I'm going to get real. They get weird. They get more weird if you say Christ than you do the devil. I mean, that's the way of the world now. And, you know, a lot of people don't want to take the time to look into the evidence for that, both outside of evangelical teachings, outside of Scripture, into ancient Rome, and study that. You'd be very surprised. But a lot of people just have this old conceived notion of what they felt religion growing up was. And I don't want to go on a tangent either, but I think that's the reason Barry and I connected. And I know that I've had these trials, and it's advanced my faith, it's advanced my study into ancient history, and it's advanced my the plausibility of an ancient people. And Barry and I both have ideas as to, you know, the spirituality, like where they came from. But I'll kind of end like Barry. I'm gonna leave it there, and also, you know, I'll be careful when I say this, but Barry, you know, Barry and his brother, if they wanted to, could drop the mic on this whole thing. Their character and who they are and what they're about isn't about dropping mics. And that might sound confusing, but that's all I'm at liberty to say. But out of respect, you know what I'm saying? Barry knows what I'm saying. So having said that, and I know what he knows about that little bit there, it's a lot to hold back and remain humble. It's a lot to hold back and just go on with your daily life and say, you know what, I'm going to play along with these fools and let them say what they say and do what they do. But I know what I know. And if you knew what I knew, I don't know if you could, like that movie with Jack Nicholson, I don't know that you can handle the truth. So I'm gonna leave all that right there. But I just wanted to, it's kind of dawned on me too, the relationship that I've formed with Barry and Derek. And then I'll say this, that our intention, our hope is within the next year, we follow up on some of this stuff, you know, documenting it. But prior to that, I want to take Barry up on his offer too. And I just want to get my butt up there with nothing in my pockets, no cameras, nobody. And I just want to go hang out with him and his brother and go out with them. I'll make that happen for sure.
Right on, brother. I hear you.
Amen. No. Everybody's cool, you know, and I think what happens is you get tested when you get kind of extreme conditions. It's almost like a boot camp, right? You get put in a position that isn't comfortable. You're in a new surroundings, and for them, it's new people, and you've got to be together, and you're out there till 4 a.m, like 3-4 nights in a row, and no one's sleeping a lot. It's going to happen, right? It's going to happen. But I think part of that too, they appreciated because they saw us kind of blowing up on each other a little bit, and like Barry said, you guys kind of remind me, you know, like you grew up on the res here a little bit. And I said, well, most of us are from the wrong side of the track, so it's not hard for like slip right into you know, being a bunch of knuckleheads. But yeah, so no, there's everything's cool, you know, everything's cool with everybody that's involved. Yeah, because I work, or the guys that were involved with this, a lot of ideas on the title came about, none of which were Citonga, Bigfoot, Spirits, and Faith. That's one I came up with. And I say that because that's what it is. It's Citonga needs to be first. That's who they are there. The Spirits and Faith also come in. In fact, the only criticism I've got in the documentary is some people in this Bigfoot world, you say the word Bigfoot, man, they want their Bigfoot, and that's all they want. They don't want to hear about faith. They don't want to hear about spirits. They don't want you to do anything paranormal. It's like a coffee snob. They only want to drink Starbucks. You know what I mean? And so, but that's fine. It's honest. And Barry and I are both okay with honest, right? And I think the other part about this that was important was I got pushed back when I wanted to feature Barry's faith, but you can't. That is what the story's about. That is what the whole premise of it. And the next time we do this, we're going to take even a deeper dive into their culture, their people. Is the reason Barry talks about nobody was talking about leading with a spiritual connection back in the day. They were all watching Finding Bigfoot, going, you know, yelling like Bobo in the trees and knocking on wood. So everybody used that as the model. And then Barry comes along, and the reason is they're an ancient people, but so is the Omahas. So are the natives. We're not ancient people here. We're just visitors, right? We came along, and, you know, Europeans had some bigger guns and you know, displaced people and slaughtered people. That's what happened, right? what goes around comes around. And Barry's rooted in an ancient tradition and ancient history that I'll never be in because this isn't my homeland, and they were there before. They've both been there hand in hand together, Citonga, big, whatever you want to call it. The other thing I talk about too is I talked to a Seminole medicine man here in Florida, talked to a guy in Pacific Northwest. Those tribes never interfaced 1,000 years ago, 200 years ago, yet they all talk about the hairy man. The Omahas have Citonga. The Seminoles had a name. I can't even pronounce it, but you know what they told me? It means, it translates to either the lost people or the ones that disappear. And just like I experienced and Barry talks about, they're there, but they don't want you to see them. You're not going to see them. And that's what he described. He's like, they can be there, but you don't see them. That's their protections. And Barry also, he and I talked about why they have those abilities. And again, you talk about this in the Bigfoot forum with some people and they get mad at you. No, it's a large Gigantopithecus descendant. They're talking about Bigfoot. They haven't seen one. They haven't seen a footprint. Everything they do is online, and yet now they've got like a foot to stand on and telling you what is and what isn't. I go back to what Barry said. Go into his world with an open heart and hang out for a bit and see what happens, and then come back, and then you can talk about it, and see if you still want to stand on that premise. So in this second film, as you see in there's RPG, who was a producer for Finding Bigfoot for a number of years, and then he was on the first episode of season 1 of Expedition Bigfoot, and got, as he said, he died on TV, and I guess it was crazy. He didn't know, because he was in Mexico previous to that shoot, that if he got some weird bug or virus, but all he knows is that he was seeing like light rainbow, like vision blurred and disoriented, and literally couldn't move. And so they took him to the hospital. 24 hours later, he's good. He gets released and goes back, and they're like, "Listen, man, good news is you're healthy. Bad news is we can't risk it happening again." So, it broke his heart. But anyway, I had linked up with him through Stacy Brown Jr., who has the famous thermal footage of a skunk ape or Sasquatch up in North Florida that his dad, they were together, but his dad was filming. And that's made the rounds. I'm sure you may or may not have seen that, but that was a big one. So I was sponsoring an event for a nature museum out here, and it was a Halloween one, and Stacy was there presenting and taking people out, and I got in his ear and just monopolized all of his time, and it probably was a shitty tour for the rest of the people. But he'd mentioned they're making a film out in that area, and would I like to check it out and be involved? And I did. And what happened was RPG was involved with Stacy, and next thing you know, the three of us said, let's start doing this. And I had a knack for production. I didn't even know what you called it, but I end up it's like right in my wheelhouse. Getting things together, logistics, finding locations, securing locations, building relationships with people. That's really the strong suit. If I had one, is building relationships with people, and they get to know me, and a level of trust is built. And then we find out if we can come out and film. And then Eli from Small Town Monsters, we had met at a conference here in town, and I needed another cameraman, and I also needed an editor, and that's what he was doing for Seth Breedlove, and so we worked it out, and he came out, and he's a great kid. I love Eli, and they loved Eli too. They really want Eli back, right? If anyone's going to come back and film, they want him back. So it was an interesting cast of characters. That was just right. It was just right for what we were trying to do. And I think that was the right group of people.
Let me say something, and I'll get to that, okay? And I only want to be fair to your podcast, okay? because, you know, a guy told me, he said, you know, I don't really listen to podcasts. He said, it's the same old story. You know, I seen it, you know, 100 yards, and it was kind of blurry, but you could see the silhouette. You know, it's the same old story. Or, you know, it peaked up, and, you know, that I'm sorry, but that just I don't, you know, it's the same old story, you know. So I say that because and I'm gonna be fair to your podcast, okay? To your listeners who listen to this. Do you care? Can I tell you something bold?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I have, and it took me a while to really, you know, be open about this, you know, because I've always tried to be humble, you know, but I want to say to you that I've seen them face to face, you know. I've come very close to them and interacted, you know, like nobody in this world, and even met, you know, their babies, their juveniles. If I would have reached out, and it may sound like an old story now, but that's what I look back on some days and just go, wow, man, you know, people are chasing their tail, you know, and again, I kind of get into that. Maybe I'm feeling like shutting it down, you know, but I owe it all to God. You know, I'm not going to stand here and say that was me, you know, look at what I did, because I know this, that if you follow the Savior's example, Jesus Christ, you know, that he says that I will show you the mysteries of this life. And my brother Trevor, I think that's what happened. In fact, I know that's what happened. So I can't take any glory for that, brother, you know. And you know, James got to witness something that unequivocally will cement legacies. And I don't want to hint around about anything, you know, just take it as it is. But I'm very humbled by that today, you know. And I told my brother Derek one time, and a few other friends, that I really feel like I could walk away from this and not feel like this is my legacy, you know, because I don't feel that way, you know. I'll go back to, I asked God, you know, why didn't anybody ask God for the truth? And I got my truth, brother. So maybe I diverted off your question. Let me say something. Let me add to that now. I think, James, if I'm still speaking and I'm in alignment with one of our goals, but we are going to form Res Squatching Productions and start producing our own documentaries and movies. So that's what really excites me today. And you're darn right, you know, James is going to come back and we're going to dive deeper into the truth, you know, so look out for that new title, you know.
Yeah, baby. And just for me, Trevor, I'll jump in real quick. For me, I'm like I said in the first one, I'm just some dude, man. I don't have an ego. I could give two poops about, you know, I make it really clear in the film. I'm not a Sasquatch hunter. I'm not a skeptic. I'm not a, you know, I don't have a body of work, but I've got an open heart and open mind. And Barry and I'd like to feature more about their community, more about the people, because this, you know, Barry is the ambassador, but the ambassador has a lot of people in that community going back before Barry that have their stories about Citonga and their family stories. And those we want to bring in the whole community on it. And one thing that was featured there is every time we go up there, we perform some kind of community service. And so I think equally as important is you don't take. We've got to give back something in order to receive something, and it's important to me to, Barry's creative. He's got a knack for it. We're going to try to do some stuff that helps the community, and that's probably the biggest gift to get out of all of it is to be able to help people that need help, and that society as a whole does. But this is an area that, it's his backyard. If we can make a difference, we'll make a difference. And also knowing that we're on the same page. He knows I'm not going to go up there with an agenda. It's his agenda. It's God's agenda. I think we'll be led to do what we're supposed to do. And there's a lot of freedom in that, and the pressure's off, because most people, if you're talking about making a film, it's usually about, well, we got to show this, we got to do this. What I learned up there was just walk up there with a blank sheet and an open heart, and the story will tell itself. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? So there's plenty more to if you knew what I knew and what I don't even know. Barry's forgotten more than I know about what he's experienced, right? But there's so much. It's so rich with history and Barry's history and their people's history that, our hope is we can line it up to where we can continue to tell the stories, and that, if anything, that's Barry's legacy, is his grandkids could look back on that and say, you know what, that's pretty you got documentaries and showing our history and telling the story and featuring your faith and be proud of their grandpa. They have to look no further. It's etched in, film forever. So those are things that are important to me as well. Again, if I know one thing about this business, I got a quick lesson in it because I wasn't from it, was everyone that a lot of people embellish things because the hope is they get clicks. It's that world that we live in. I want clicks, I want views, I want money. And in this business, like we were talking about Seth from Small Town Monsters, right? That guy's got the market cornered on cryptids and that type of films. Like the top 5 Amazon are all his, and they always will be, and they always are. And that's just the way it is. And he pumps it out and pumps it out. And he does this fundraising for his company. And he wrote a thing on Facebook once, not that long ago, saying, I just want to clear this up. He said, people think I'm getting rich off of this. I'll tell you what, I put whatever I got back into like getting better equipment and you got to pay people, you got to pay editors, you got to pay cameramen, you got to pay lighting, all this stuff. And he's like, I don't even make a middle-class income, but it's all I know how to do. He said, I think I'm a pretty good filmmaker. I love it. And I don't know what else to do. So if it's not something that if someone told you, because again, and I'll be transparent too, the stuff I did the past 2 years cost me money and I'll never get it back. And you know what I get? I get what we're doing right now. I get, the relationship with Barry, and something that other people like me will never experience. There's not a price tag on that. So it isn't about some, money-making scheme. It's, I tell people people that don't even know about it. I had my brother-in-law here from Maryland and his son. They were watching it and they were just like, I can't believe you got to do that. Like, I'm just can't believe. And they're watching it and they're like, well, this is genuine. Like, this isn't some running, finding Bigfoot stuff. This is like, you can tell it comes through. It's genuine. And they're the same thing. Like, when are you going to do it again? I'm like, I can't just push a button, man. You got logistics and coordinating things and where I'm at in my life. But like I said, we'll appeal to the man upstairs, and it'll happen when it's supposed to happen. We were out there for 4 days, and or the first night, and then 4 days following that, I believe. And so we rolled in the reservations along the Missouri River. And what's interesting about that is, you get into Omaha and it's all flat. And I used to live there as a kid for a few years. And while it's much bigger, it's still flat, you know. And you're trying to in your mind think Nebraska and Bigfoot. Doesn't seem to compute. But when you get to that corner up near South Dakota, and that it's timber and hills, and you see it when you see it, you're like, oh, this is totally feasible. So we were there about four days total, and we really got in that night, and we went out that night. You know, we went out till, you know, the middle of the night one, and it was pretty much like that the next 2 or 3 nights. And during the day, we had some stuff happen the night before. So in the film with RPG and the group he went with, they had to go back to try to debunk or cross-reference these lights that they saw and make sure that it wasn't like a horizon view of house lights that were maybe obstructed by trees, and maybe if the trees moved a little bit, you know, it looks like their lights perhaps moving or doing other things. But they went out that next day, and there was a rise. The lights were below it, so there was no horizontal opportunity for house lights, and that was pretty interesting. So in the day, we did that. We would do more interviews and stuff during the day, and at nights, you know, they took us all over the place. And as you see near the end of the film, they took us to some older, over 100-year-old houses that were abandoned, that had, again, they all had tragic history, right? And as a paranormal guy, you can appreciate that, right? They had tragic history. There isn't any white dudes being driven around at 3 a.m. on the res, but us. And so a lot of this was first time, right, for someone not from the reservation to go investigate that. So we did bring the complement of paranormal stuff to investigate these, you know. And listen, I'm really not that guy. So I didn't put a lot of stock in the spirit box and stuff. I'm like, it's a radio, the frequency goes back and forth. I get it. The voices should come through this frequency if they respond. Oh, all right, I'll try it. And like you see, I got a lot more than I bargained for. I got a lot more than I bargained for. And RPG, who's been in that business, the film business, he's like, dude, that's the most activity I've had on both fronts, paranormal or Bigfoot, ever. And total, and it happened in a span of a few nights. How can I put this? Just be straight up. I didn't expect anything to happen. I did not, especially that first night when you'd have to see the film, but the first night investigating, I did not expect that to happen. The last night when we're in that house, did not expect that to happen. And you know, again, and I talk about it, I'm scratching my head going, you know, I can't square this away. There's no logic that tucks us into a nice box. There's just not, you know. It's what I was hoping for. But a lot of times I tell people, if you mess around with it, you might get more than you bargained for. Like, be careful. Like, this isn't all just a show where you go with your friends and then you just turn it off and you go back home. Because I'll try to put this, again, just as transparent as I can. I got out of it for a bit after that. There's some stuff, you know, they talk about attachments, or I don't know what to call it, but I know that things happened in my life that like gave me concern for me. And I've got a wife and 2 girls, you know, and I guess I was that guy that thought, oh, you go there and you play out in the woods, you play in these houses, and you come home and, you know, clock out and it's all done. I don't believe that's true, you know, and I now, you know, and I don't know that people realize that when you dabble in such things and seek it out, that sometimes you find it.
Exactly. I think that's the perfect word for this whole show tonight, is genuine, and that's what you both are. So thank you so much for joining us on Haunting Live and promoting the film that you both put together. I think it's amazing. And let's hope there is a part 2 at some point and you get to tell those other stories you haven't told yet.
Absolutely. Now, I'll say this. If people do want to watch it, there's some options now. If you want to watch it for free, just go to TUBI and type in Citonga, Citonga, and it'll come up. For some reason, if you want to pay for it on Amazon, it's $1.99, but there's no commercials. I think some people, that's worth it. It's on Amazon Prime. So you can check it out those two ways right now.
Sounds great. And Barry, any final words before we sign off?
Oh man, Trevor, you do such a wonderful job, man. I want to thank you. I can't thank you enough for having us. James, man, I love you, brother, and stay tuned.
Yeah, I love you too, brother, and stay tuned.
Wonderful. Thank you both so very much. I really appreciate it. I'm honored to have both of you on. Nice to meet you, James, and thank you for coming back, Barry. I appreciate it.
Thank you again.
Thanks, Trevor.
Okay.
See you, man.
If any man lack wisdom, let him ask, and upbraideth not, and the truth will be given. Faith is like a muscle. You have to build it, man. You have to build upon it. They chose who they wanted to interact with. They knew who maybe had the truth.
It's compassion for our people is what it is that keeps us going.